Right, guys, so they had that big snowstorm, but who said that we was gonna let that snowstorm stop us? Because right here in Texas, honey, we do it big. So they got this new program that they're gonna be rolling out that is known as Be the People. So they get it from the Declaration of Independence, where it says, "We the people," right? Or the Constitution also. Well, this is called Be the People. And it is a new initiative that they're going to be rolling out. But guess what, guys? How many of us know that homelessness, pregnancy, veterans, economics, all this stuff is here? How many of us know that? And how many of us know that how many programs have been rolled out time and time again? It seems like Americans still find themselves back at square one. So they will roll out these great programs, and these great programs, everybody will be excited about, right? And then when everybody start getting into the programs, they start finding out, oh, I got to do this to get on the program, or I got to do that. So it's not always what it opts out to be, right? And then the program somehow tends not to live up to all the hype that it was all about. We're going to talk about that today because this program is known as Be the People. It is a new initiative, right? But when we break it down today, what we're going to be looking into is it really new? Or is it just brand new packaging, brand new wording, and just a new way to sell us on old programs, just repackaged differently? Or is it something actually new? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because right here on the Creative Leadership Network, that's what this channel is all about. This channel is all about looking at leadership, studying leadership, looking at what they're doing in America. Is it helping us? Are we getting better? Or are we going backwards? Or are we just stuck in the same old playing field with just different repackaging? Welcome to the Creative Leadership Network. I'm IBK. TCLN is a world-class news, education, and leadership organization that turns mainstream news into clarity, insight, and action. I know that sometimes people get confused and they get frustrated with all these headlines, and they just kind of get tired of all this bipartisan argument and just all this information that is going on. And there's so much information coming at people from all different walks of life, right? Social media, mainstream media, podcasts, everything you can think of, right? Well, I take news right here and I just slow it down. So I just take what's already been out there, what's been reported, and I just slow it down. So when I slow it down, what we do is we just get into it and we look at it from a leadership perspective. We put the leadership lens on top of the news to see what is really being said, who is really saying it, why they are really saying it, and how does it affect us as United States citizens of America. So now let's turn today's mainstream news into leadership lessons. So this particular article I came across, actually there's two articles. So there's one from the Associated Press, and then there's one from PBS. So I like to draw off sources that I know that give you basically the facts, the truth, and then we can kind of work from there, right? Because there's a lot of stuff going on out there, a lot of he say, she say, but I don't like to come from that angle. I go get those facts and then we take it from there, okay? I'm going to go over just a little bit of detail in this article so that you can understand, just in case you haven't heard of it, Be the People. So it's rolling out in January, right? But it's going to be an initiative that's going to match up with July the 4th, Declaration of Independence. So let me read a little bit so you guys and all of us together can learn, because that's what this channel is all about, and we can get insight into what is this actually saying, right? So let me start from here. This is the Associated Press, Be the People by Thalia Beatty. So again, this was posted January the 20th, 2026. So just in case you want to go look up the article on Associated Press, or you can just Google Be the People and you would see the articles come up. As the official celebrations of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence culminate on July the 4th, a well-financed, privately funded, initiative will kick off to try to connect hundreds and millions of Americans with efforts to solve local problems. The Be the People campaign aspires to change the perception that US is hopelessly divided and that individuals have the power to overcome problems like poverty, addiction, violence, and stalled economic mobility. It also wants to move people to take action to solve those problems. Just in case you're wondering who's behind it all, Brian Hooks, chairman and CEO of the nonprofit network Stand Together, said the 250th anniversary is a unique moment to show people that they matter, that they have a part to play, and that the future is unwritten. But it depends on each one of us stepping in and doing our part. Funding by a mix of 50 philanthropic foundations and individual donors, Be the People builds on research that indicates many people want to contribute to the communities but don't know how. The initiative is targeting more than 200 million for its first year budget. Okay, so that's what they're going to be starting off with. Hooks said the initiative envisions actions far beyond volunteering or service, that people could do their time free. He pointed to a role for business and schools and said that the initiative would launch a major data collection effort to track whether people are actually engaged or whether problems are actually getting solved. Now, that is very, very important. Where problems are actually getting solved. This is where TCLN Network is going to come into today because, of course, I know a lot about these programs. I used to work for 211. So I started with 211 when 211 first came out some years ago. So right before Katrina hit and Rita hit, 211 was just evolving. It was just coming into play. So guys, I don't know if you ever heard of 211. You got 411, then you have 911, and you have what's called 211. So 211 is your information and referral system, right? So that means that you can give them a zip code, whoever you are, you can call in and say, hey, I need help with my rent, or I need help with this, or whatever the case may be, childcare, whatever, right? Social services, all kind of databases. So that's how I began to find out a lot about communities and a lot about all of the systems and information that's out there. And since I lived in Texas and worked in the Texas 211, when the program was first starting, we had to handle other big cities too. So not only were we in Dallas handling Dallas, we were also getting calls from across the United States of America until it developed out. Until 211 developed out. So that's how I knew about all these resources, all these places, all this information. But you know what I noticed while I was working there is that homelessness, childcare, food stamps, AFDC, veterans, pregnancy, housing, all these different things, is that these programs been out there for years and years and years. But was there actually real change? And that's what I'm going to talk about today, right? This sounds good. Good packaging. I'm going to go through it. We're going to break it down. But is it the same old thing, just repackaged? Or with possible insight and creativity? Because this is where a lot of people miss out at. They will get all this funding. They will go out and do all these great ideas. But if you pull the cover back, it's just a lot of packaging. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just a lot of rebranding, but it's the same old situations and it's done the same old way. And I know that things can be done differently. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And if you're one of those types of people that maybe you're in the situation yourself where you need help, you may want to listen to this because this may give you some bright ideas. But if you're one of those people that you're a community activist, you're a leader in your communities, you're the kind of person that says, hey, we've been looking at these initiatives all these years and it seems like the problems get worser. It seems like for a while, things will begin to help will come along, and then we'll look up and we'll see that it got worse instead of getting better. Homelessness, that's one of the things I'm going to hit on today because, of course, I myself go through homelessness, right? And so I know about that all too well. I've worked on the end of helping with homelessness. I volunteer from homelessness. And then I also myself know what it's like to go through real homelessness. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the United States of America. So I just wanted to put this together. I thought this was very, very important. We're going to talk about this. So, guys, get comfortable, get your tea, get your coffee if you're a little bit cold out there, or whatever you're doing. Listen up, right? This is going to be good. So, listen up. Now, just in case you wanted to know who is behind this, who's going to be participating in this, let's go over it. So the participating organizations and partners include a mix of civic, cultural, and corporate players, such as Giving Tuesday, Goodwill Industries, Habitat for Humanity, More Perfect, the NBA, National Basketball Association. Y'all know y'all like y'all basketball players now. Imagine Entertainment, John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, and many more. Okay? So that's according to PBS. That comes from PBS. Now, their approach and strategy. The initiative will focus connecting citizens with local efforts rather than top-down policy solutions. Local efforts, get that. So they're going to be doing things on a local level instead of top-down policy solutions. It emphasizes meaningful engagement, not just volunteering for service tasks, but actually tackling community issues with measurable impact. The campaign will also include data collections, track engagement, and results. Okay? Now, the 10-year vision, organizers describe this as a long-term, decade-long cultural effort and not just one event or a year of activity. The ideal is to reframe civic engagement and community problem solving as central parts of American identity moving forward. Okay, so their big ideal is that all this divided stuff, all these arguments, all this stuff is going on. We can solve the problem if we just come together, right? That's their big ideal. We can solve these problems if we just come together. No partisan, none of that. Just come together and everybody get the work in, pick the work in and get it done. Well, before I would say the last 10 years, this decade that we've been over, or maybe even 15 years or so, or maybe 20 years, where all of this partisan stuff just started building up. The truth is before that, they've always had communities working, volunteering, doing the work, the funding being given to the organizations. But again, these things would happen all over again. It'll be back at square one. Things will get worse instead of getting better. I'll give a homelessness as an example. All of this funding would go out to homelessness, homeless shelters, homeless this, homeless that, clothing, everything you can think of. Millions upon millions and billions of dollars have went toward that. But when you look at these homeless shelters in the United States of America, they are a literal disgrace. And it left many of us asking, where is the money going? Like, seriously, even people that didn't live in homeless shelters, they be like, where is the money going, honey? What is these people doing with this money? Because I remember when I worked for the community council, we had our budget set up. Well, at least I did, because you could choose to, right? So I had my money set up to where a percentage of my money would go to certain organizations like the Salvation Army, all these different places, so that people could get help. You know, you could participate in these initiatives, right? And again, when you get in that situation and you get in the real world, there's a difference between you working and you're helping, or maybe you just never experienced those things and you just think, oh, well, I go give bread and I go give boxes of food and I go give clothes and it looks okay to me. Well, you really don't know the truth. I'm sorry to tell you. The shelters are horrible. They are horrible. And there are very horrible things that go on inside those shelters. Do you understand me? Very horrible things. I'm not going to put anybody on spot. I can name names. I can name cities. I can just bust some stuff if I want to, because I've been there and I know what I'm talking about and I would never lie about it. But that's not what this show is about today. This is more on inspiration, but it's also more insight for us to understand that Just because you got $200 million, just because you got a great brand that says be the people, just because it sounds good with the 4th of July and independence and freedom and all of this, you got to make sure it's not tweaking of branding, tweaking of packaging, but the same old systems in the same old ways that are not really truly moving people forward. And that's what I'm going to talk about here today, okay? I'm gonna give you a little bit more about this inside of this be the people, and then we're gonna jump in, people. We're gonna jump in. I'm excited about this show. I love stuff like this, because this is what's called experience. This is what's called I've worked in it. I remember being on my job telling my boss one day, I said, I really don't feel like we're helping these people as much as we should. Every time they call in, we ain't got no funding. I'm like, so where all the money going? My boss is like, you need to shut up and sit down. That's basically what her attitude was, right? And I knew that I had these great ideas, but they just was not welcomed. Do you understand that? So I love this. I love this topic. Now, back to the be the people. The timing with the historic anniversary, the campaign launches on a major symbolic date, the U.S.'s 250th birthday, which most Americans will be aware of, and that frames civic engagement as part of national identity. The size and scale, with more than 200 million in initial funding and dozens of funding partners, this isn't a small community group. It's a coordinated national effort. Cross-sector and coalition. The coalition includes major nonprofits, corporations, cultural institutions, signaling both widespread appeal and strategic reach. Sounds familiar, don't it? Because they already do that, right? That's why I said some things sound like, oh, but when you really break it down, like, guys, all of these corporations already do that. All of these institutions been doing that. It just sounds like all this stuff, right? Like, wow. I think the only thing that sounded different was the NBA, the National Basketball League. But we all know that all of these organizations have been doing this for years. So what is the problem? We're going to get there. Hang in there. Now, response to polarization. Organizers are positioning this as an antidote to political division, a civic engagement project that transcends party lines and focuses on problem solving. Well, that sounds good, don't it? Woohoo! But isn't that what the organizations already do? Like, you don't go to the Salvation Army and say, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, I'm this. Can you please help me, like, make sure I keep my apartment and rent over my head? And no, they don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat. What is your needs? Do you have needs? Fill out this form. All these different organizations, right? Like, so what I mean is, when I say this, I'm not knocking be the people. What I'm saying is that it's no different. The only thing that sounded like that would get our attention is the NBA. Like, what? The NBA gonna be involved? I wonder which players, Or is it just the organization, the top head organization itself, right? But let's be real. Let's be real, guys. We've heard it all before. This is just the same old thing. It's the same thing. So what are we actually talking about here? Like, what are you guys going to actually do that's different? That's different. And I'm going to give you some examples so you will know why all of this money gets involved. All of these institutions get involved, but real change does not happen, or it doesn't move the needle as much. It do some, don't get it twisted. It do some, but not as much. We're going to get into that, right? Stay with me, because I believe that this is good, but you need some tweaks. You need some insight. And sometimes the tweak and the insight really do come from the people, from we the people that you want to be the people. See what I'm saying? Let's see what I'm saying. That sounds good, don't it? That sounds good, but it's true. Now, the reality check is this. This is the reality check, guys. These problems are not new. This initiative is really not new. It's packaged up. It's wordy. It sounds good. And I think the only things I really see in there that are different is when they named the NBA. And the NBA has always kind of did its own thing with as far as philanthropic, what they call philanthropic help and stuff like that. And I think the only thing is they said in this time where it's so divided, they're trying to bring everybody together. But the truth is, the organizations never really operated off of stuff like that. Maybe religious organizations and stuff, but not really most organizations. Most organizations was just all about the so-called help, right? Now, food access, shelters, job training, mental health programs. These been existing forever, right? All of these organizations that they are naming been existing, right? And they've been doing the work. So what's different now? We're going to get there. We're going to get there. In many cases, past programs have failed to make measurable systemic change. Is there really anything new here? Is there really anything new here? Will it just be mostly branding, media coverage, funding volume? Is it just the same old agenda, just repackaged? That's important. That's important. You go to some of these shelters in America, you would wonder how they get funding. They should be shut down. Bars should be on top of them. They should be on a lockdown, flock down, boot down. Baby, funding where? There's no way that I could work for the United States government and I go out to some of these places and see what's going on. I'd be the one that's going back saying, absolutely not. We not doing none of that. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's just me. But that's what I would be doing. So again, what's new? Organizations I've named, they've always been there. The needs, healthcare, job training, shelters, food access, it's there. So what's the problem? What's the problem? I'm going to tell you what the problem is, guys. The real problem is not housing and it's not poverty. It's not food. It's not none of this stuff. The real problem is a system that maintains the status quo. And in order for you to bring about real change, you're going to have to do real system changes. And in leadership, that takes not $200 million, not all the things that you think. It takes creativity and it takes a willing heart. It's just as simple as that. It takes creativity and it takes a willing heart. Funding, yeah, everybody get funding. It takes creativity and it takes a willing heart and it takes honest eyes to say, we're going to look at this and we're going to really study this and we're going to see what does not work. All of these programs been here for years. Why do it end up in such disasters? Why do it end up in such a mess? Why does it end up with all this funding going out, but good results are ending up on the table? Why do we have to keep repeating the cycles over and over and over again? It takes honest eyes. It take a willing heart and a willing mind. And it take some bold, creative leadership. So let me give you an example. We talked about homelessness, right? But before I get into that, I want to let you know some of the people who are going to be backing this project. So you guys can follow the project if you like. You can get involved with the project if you like. You can even give some of your input and maybe write to them and give some of your ideas, right? You can even share this video. How about that? So let's just talk about who are some of the people that's going to be involved in this Be the People project. So I named some of the organizations. Now let's look at some of the people. Again, Brian Hooks, CEO of Stand Together, who is the lead figure in the initiative. You got philanthropic foundations, a coalition of over 50 donors, including John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. You have civic figures such as Martin Luther King III, and Andrea Waters King, who linked their Realize the Dream program to the campaign during its launch. You have major organizations and founding members that include Giving Tuesday, Goodwill Industries, Habitat for Humanity, the National, again, Basketball Association, corporate partners, Ron Howard's Imagine Entertainment is also a founding member. So some of you guys may be familiar with these people and organizations. You may know things about them. Of course, I don't know everything about them. Everybody knows about King and the King family, but I definitely don't know everything about every organization, but maybe you guys do. And you can give your input. If you're watching by YouTube, you can definitely comment in the comment sections and share some of your insight. Maybe you know some things that I don't know, and maybe other people need to know. And it's always good to share because you never know who's learning on this platform. You never know who's watching this platform. And so it's just good to share what you know. And you're always helping someone else, okay? Now I want to give an example, right? Let me talk about what I mean when I say you have to have creativity. You have to have a willing heart, and you have to have honest eyes that say, listen, we talk about this system all the time. Everybody is always talking about how horrible the system has been, blah, 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 blah. But nobody has brought like real change to the system. They've put all these programs together, but if you don't look at the system itself and change the system itself, then you're not bringing real change. And so then the systemic problem is still there, and the money is flowing to all the organizations, all this stuff, but you're still ending up with the same problems over and over again. So that's what I mean by I want to give a real example. Homelessness is a big issue. Housing itself is a big issue in the United States of America. So let me just give you that example. And I'm just going to share my insights from my experience of going through homelessness myself, from my experience of working on the other side and working in organizations, working with information and referral, being a certified information and referral and benefits counselor, and just sharing a little bit of, and I'm going to give one example, but this example can apply across the board on all the issues that we're dealing with, right? So, and I forgot to mention too, Be the People is going to be headed by Dr. Carol Swain. So you can look her up. Again, her name is Dr. Carol Swain. Okay, so guys, she's a part of that also. Now, let me give an example. Let's just say you have a massive problem of homelessness in the United States of America. And let's just say you bring out all these initiatives and you bring out all these ideas and you start off, right? But you don't deal with the root of what's really happening with this homeless thing, right? So you'll say things like, oh, well, people are veterans, You'll say things like, oh, well, a lot of people are dealing with mental health issues. You'll say things like, oh, the economy and people have, lost jobs and all this kind of stuff. You'll talk about mental health. And I mean, like, you'll name these things, right? And that's fine because when it comes to homelessness, you don't have a one-stop shop issue. It's not like, oh, you just got this one answer and everybody's going through this one thing and that's what homelessness is. The truth is there's a lot of many things when it comes to homelessness. But what I want to hit on is I want to hit on a couple of things. I want to hit on spiritual. I want to hit on systemic. And then I want to hit on just everyday life, right? Because there are things that we don't pay attention to in everyday life. Like, let's just say you open up an initiative and you get some people to work on the campaign, but the person's hearts are not right. It runs deep, guys. People's hearts are not right. And they are picking and choosing over who they want, picking and choosing over who they don't want. Money is not being dispersed fairly. Things are not happening as they should. That's one issue. It may also be an issue of stealing. I remember being at a shelter one time, and like I said, I'm not gonna name names today. This happens all over America, so pick and choose which shelter you want. Sometimes people will donate really nice stuff, really nice clothing, really nice things. They've done that over the years, right? And it was supposed to have been for people to look for jobs and things to happen for people. And some of the people will work at the shelters and steal all the good stuff and go resell it, or they will steal it, keep it for themselves, or give it to their family members, and then they will give the people the junk. Stuff like that. You also, like, I mean, the list goes on, right? And then you would have stuff like people being brutally abused in shelters. When I say brute, I want to name a shelter so bad. When I say so bad, because I know what I'm talking about. And I don't back down from nothing. But like I said, I'm going to stick to my promise here, and I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is try to give insight so you guys can see why things lack and why things don't move forward the way they should. It's so many reasons, but a lot of the reasons are internal or not what you think it is. I was at one shelter. They would literally give these sheets out to people where it had pee stains on it, like literal pee stains. And I asked them, I said, why is y'all giving people pee stain sheets like that? I said, what is going on? Like, why would you guys do that, right? And one of the guys, because it was my time to like help fold the sheets and help do this and this and that. And they had good sheets, wash sheet, good, what do you call that? New sheet. These people had all kind of stuff, but they were purposely just doing this, right? And it was abuse. Like they would talk. I remember there was a young woman that was there, and she was very afraid, and she had how can I put it? It was her first time there, and somebody had they steal a lot of shelters. Somebody had stole all her stuff. So everything she had, her clothing, her baby clothing, they stole it. So, when you young like that, you afraid. You around all these weird people, and I do say weird because there be some weird stuff going on, y'all. And because they mix everybody in, you with drug addicts, you with this, you with rapists, you with that. Like, it's not like it's that's why people don't like these shelters. Like you're there with mental illness. Then you got people who can work, and you got people who can do this, and they have to go through all this hell. It's just a beast up in these things, right? And then half the time, the stuff is it's just so much psychological abuse. And I just remember they told her, you shut up. And it was freezing outside. And they told her, you shut up, for we throw you out in the cold. Just abuse. 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 Guys, you really don't know what goes on. Now, mind you, I was there and I was watching all of this. And I remember every so often, I think it's the Homeless Alliance or different types of people, they will come in and they would monitor these shelters. So everything would look clean and everything would look bright and like everything going on, right? And they would sit down and talk to the people. And I saw it with my own eyes. I would never lie about this. And I remember just observing. And I'm a very vocal person, but I remember just observing. Now, everybody, before these people showed up, everybody was talking, they this, they that, they treat us so bad. It's just like a job, right? Everybody talks about the bad boss and everybody's complaining, everybody's going through. But then when it comes time to stand up for what's right, everybody shrugs and everybody act like they don't know what's going on. Why? Nobody wants to get fired. Nobody wants to lose their job. Well, some of these people are on housing lists and they're desperate for a place to stay. So they're going through abuse in these places and they have to bear down. They have to be talked to crazy. They have to be abused. They have to be like done dirty. All because if I say something, they're going to take me off the housing list or they're going to kick me out. Like people don't understand how deep it runs, right? And then the people go through all of this just to try to get housing and then never end up getting the housing and end up getting kicked out the shelters or if something ends up happening. So it's so much, guys. It's bigger than what you think, right? So this is why local things need to be done. It's not just about policy. You can have the greatest politicians. You can say, oh, we're going to put these great ideas together. We're going to do this and do that. But if you're not dealing locally and see what these people are doing inside these places, this is why real change is not happening. Some of the reasons, not all. So I just wanted to give a little bit of insight on that. Also, you have to recognize that there's religious abuse go on. Some people don't want to talk about that. There is literal religious abuse that goes on in these places. There are people that go up in there, they claim that they supposed to be preaching the love of God. They claim this and claim that. And if people challenge them, or if people say, that's not what God said, or whatever the case may be, there's abuse that goes on in these places. That's another thing that people don't want to acknowledge. A lot of religious institutions deal with these places. But some of the people they send up in there are not always good people. They scrupulous people. I'm saying it, baby. Because if I'm lying, God get me. But if I be honest, God be with me. And some people just be taking advantage of these people, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Just using them as little yo-yos. You understand what I'm saying? And then you have what's called corporate abuse. Everybody's getting a tax break off of them. You understand what I'm saying? But it's not really moving forward. The people are not really getting the help that they need. So you must deal with these systemic issues. You can't just keep throwing funding to the elephant and the elephant ain't moving. And you're not dealing with the elephant. You're not cutting up the elephant and dealing with the bite-sized chunks that are going on local levels. You got to deal with this stuff. You got to deal. You can have the greatest, let's just say Jasmine Crockett, right? She's one of the leaders that I carry on this show. She deals with this stuff on a policy level as far as right now. You understand what I'm saying? Not what I'm talking about, but just issues just in general, like housing crisis, all kind of stuff like that, right? Let's look a little bit. You understand what I'm saying? So we was looking at Jasmine Crockett. She works on the federal level, right? So pushing bills to fix housing supply, strengthening voucher programs, and tied in income stability to housing access. She highlights structural solutions, showing leadership at the policy level. Yay! Good. But when you're not dealing out here in this field, you're not seeing what's going on. You're not seeing the injustices that's going on. That's where the corruption lies at. A lot of people think the corruption is at the top. A lot of the corruption is at the bottom with the everyday people. Some people do not belong in these positions. It's just like having a nurse. Some people don't want to be a nurse. They just did it because they want the money. And then the patients get abused. All kind of stuff happens. And then the quality of healthcare goes down. Not because of the healthcare itself, but because of the abuse of institutions. These are things you got to be able to deal with. This is what I mean by honest eyes. You can't just throw $200 and say, and repack packaging and rebranding and think it's going to be okay. Nope, it's going to seem like it's moving forward. Going to seem like everybody doing this and that and that. And you're going to look up 10 years later, it's going to be still a hot mess. You got to be able to deal with these issues. People say, oh, it's so corrupt at the top. I beg to differ. You put all the policies in place. You put all the good people in place. But if you don't deal with who you're allowing to work on these programs, who you are bringing in, and you got all these abusive people, psychotic people, folks that don't want to do right. And they love to try to make you look bad. They love to try to get out there and say, we're going to catch them on camera. We're going to try to provoke them and make them look bad. But we don't work up in there. You do. So get it together. Get it together. You understand what I'm saying? You got to get it together. It runs deeper than what people do. Spiritual. Let me give you an example about spiritual stuff. Guys, a lot of people may not like this, but God's commandments really do work. And I am not even a religious person. I'm just not. Anybody who know me, I don't have time for your sagas, your speaking in tongues, falling out, acting like you anointed, baby, bye. Because I already know that's shenanigans and ain't nobody doing right. I'm not a religious person, but I believe in some simple commandments. Simple commandments, y'all. And them commandments do work. They not only work for you personally as a person of developing yourself, they work for a society of people trying to do right toward one another, and they also work for a government. And the commandments are simple. Don't defraud one another. Don't be having sex with other people's husbands and wives. Stop all that fornication. It leads to all that mess. You understand what I'm saying? Do right, do right, do right. Just simple commandments. And you say, well, how do commandments play in this? Well, I'm going to tell you how it play in this. Do not defraud your neighbor. When you are throwing money at the elephant, and you're throwing repackaging at the elephant, and you're not dealing with the system itself, and on every level, then you are defrauding your neighbor. You gotta come with the new. You gotta come with creativity. Leaders are creative. And if you ain't creative, but you're good at leading, you need to go get you some think tanks and some creative people. You need to surround yourself around some creative people. You need to surround yourself around some people to say, hey, we ain't doing this the same old way no more. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Again, let's stay with the housing. What I mean about spiritual level. Now, remember years ago when they was giving out housing, right? They were rebuilding these apartments. They were giving out housing, but you had to get on the program. So if anybody know what I'm talking about, what was the program? You had to claim something was wrong with you. You had to either claim that you had been abused or battered. You had to either claim that you dealing with mental stuff, like I'm depressed or I'm this or I'm that. And then they will put you on the program. And then they will assign you these pills that you would have to take. And so the black people, you know, black people savvy. They be like, we ain't finna take that stuff. Ain't no telling what they giving people, honey. So black people will say, oh, we're not gonna take that. But what we gonna do is just act like we're taking it. And then what's gonna happen is that, you know, we just gonna get our place and we're gonna live our lives and try to get jobs and better our lives. Those people came back and said, if you don't take that stuff, if we test your blood and that stuff is not in your blood, we're gonna kick you off the program. You can't be on the program. Now, I never signed up for it. They used to try to get me to sign up for it. I was a little bit, by the grace of God, I have made many mistakes. But there were some mistakes I just wasn't willing to make. And let me tell you something. The people would try to talk me. They said, well, just go say you battered. I said, I said, because if you get caught lying, police going to come back and lock you up. I said, so ain't no use me lying, telling no man battered me, then I'm going to get locked up. And they say, well, pray like you depressed. Pray like this. Do something. Get you an apartment. I said, I ain't finna put that on my name willingly like that. No. So again, you have to have honest eyes of what people have been through in these systems. You can't sugarcoat it. And you have to have creativity and a willing heart. You have to be able to say, I hold myself to a standard. And that standard is God's commandment where I will not defraud my neighbor. I would not demise them on one end and put them on meds that's not good for them. Also on the other end, I could pretend like I'm giving them an apartment. I would not defraud my neighbor like that. That's where the commandments come in. Oh, what she mean by the commandments? You know what I mean by them commandments. Y'all the ones raised us with the commandments. You just done forgot about them. And you need to get back to them. Education. Another reason why it's not stopping, because you're not giving the right education. No, you're giving education. It's just not the right education. You out here giving education on how to accept being a lesbian or being into homosexuality. You out here giving education on this and that, but you're not giving the right education. What people do in their bedroom is their business. It is none of my business that Jack and Jack choose to be together, or Sheila and Deborah. That's their business. But you know what? It is our business because it affects us as taxpayers. People who keep having babies over and over and over and over and over and can't afford them. So you get out there and you say, well, we done that too. We gave sex education. But you didn't give the right kind of education. Oh, you gave sex education. If you're going to stick it in the pee-pee, stick it in the hole, you need to put a condom on. Or you need to get some birth control. But you didn't give the right education. You got to deal with these issues. You say, well, what's the right education, IBK? Teaching people who they are. Teaching people that listen. Just like there are consequences if you take drugs, there are consequences if you decide to be a business person and you have to invest all and do all. There are consequences. It could be good consequences, bad consequences. There are consequences. There is consequences to sex. Life is made that we procreate. But when you don't teach people who they are and the value of who they are and how powerful they are, if they keep them legs closed and make sure they are with the right person at the right time. You don't hear people teaching that. A few people out there, but you really don't hear people. I'm talking about you guys in the politics, in business, in that. Some of you guys know how important it is who you mate with and who you don't mate with. You guys know this, but you don't teach it to other people though. And you don't teach people the importance of, you can't just be out there messing with any and everybody. You come up with all these babies. You got to deal with all these issues. I'm talking about the right kind of education, the real education of teaching people that you are so powerful and the seed that you carry is powerful. And you want to make sure what you're doing with your body. Now, that's a whole big educational topic, but just to give you a little bit, there's a difference between, hey, if you're going to have sex, blah, 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 versus teaching people value, changing their lives so that we can start dealing with the issues of pregnancy and why people keep just getting pregnant. Because the more you keep trying to throw money at stuff and you don't fix the issues, folks going to keep having babies, poverty going to keep going on. You got to get to them roots. You got to get to the roots. Okay. So I just wanted to throw some of that out there. That's kind of like we gotta get real about how we look at this stuff, guys. We really do. You gotta get real about it. Because if not, you know how they say you just keep putting lipstick on the pig? That basically what be happening. And it looked like everything be going good for a while, only for it to collapse all over again. So leadership is seeing the gaps. You understand that? It's seeing the gaps and acting where others will not act and creating real change. Not just following shiny campaign moments. You don't need $200 million campaign just to lead. Now I'm talking to y'all out here. You need real courage, clarity, and action. You understand? Some of y'all say, I have a desire to do this and do that. You don't need $200 million. You need imagination, courage. You understand? Creativity and action. Do you understand that? You know, I lived on the streets. Did this show living on the streets. Because I had a will. I had a desire. People would laugh at me, talk about, nobody want to hear what you guys say with your one wig and your little 2 pair of clothes. I didn't care. Because I knew my message was bigger than a wig and 2 pair of clothes. And I felt like this, if you was full of love, you would have offered me a wig. You would have offered me some more clothes. But nah, you know how people do you, right? And that's why real change don't be happening. Because of attitudes in the world like that. Everybody want to fake when that camera come on. But in real life, people's heart don't be right. You understand what I'm saying? So, I also want to remind you of this. No matter how creative you are, no matter how beautiful your ideas are, when it comes to financial and resources, there is a limitation. So you can't be burdened by guilt when it comes to limitation. You just have to be aware of desire and help as many as people that you can help, that you can bring out. You're not gonna be able to save everybody. Let's say you had, I'm gonna give something reasonable. Let's say you had $125,000 and you came across a whole broke down unit, right? And you like, man, I've always wanted to fix this up. And I want to take this $125,000. I want to fix this up. This is about a six apartment unit. And I want families to be in there, or, you know, maybe single mothers with you, or fathers. Maybe you a guy, you want to help fathers. Don't many people look out for single fathers, right? And I want to put them up in there. And then I want to give them, get with men and different organizations. And we build these men up. I mean, your ideas, but at least you doing it for some. Now, you couldn't get out there and help 1 million and help 1,000, but you're doing it for some. And that's where your relief should be, is because you thought outside the system and you thought about something better. You wasn't trying to put those men on psychotic meds so you can continue to try to make money off of them and profit off of them and all that kind of stuff and all this crazy stuff that people be out here doing. You said, nah, I'm going to honor them commandments. I'm not going to defy my brother like that. I'm going to do it differently. And if I can only help 6 at a time, that's fine. At least I done it right. That's what I want to remind you leaders of today. Do it right. Don't worry about your limitations and all that kind of stuff. Worry about your creativity and your willing heart. And whatever you can do it right. That's where God shines. Not the same old pigs with the same old lipstick, the same old budgets, same old initiatives. It's just repackaged differently. I am hoping that Be the People be something totally different, and that it really does work outside the system, and that it really does show the world what you can do different than what we've always passed down in the system. You don't have to med people. You don't have to keep profiting off of them. You don't have to keep them down so you get a tax break. How do you free them? How do you liberate them? How do you make them better for real? And that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope that this has blessed you in some type of way, right? In some type of way. And if you desire to be a leader, I want you to go ahead and connect with this show. Every Wednesday at 7 a.m., I air right there on Austin TV, public TV, right? And on YouTube, every Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. I would love for you to connect with this source. This is a source that I created and I put together, because a lot of people say, oh, it's so much negative news, so much this and so much that. Well, guess what? News can be positive. We just can't just keep consuming information. We got to take, that was in the news, that was in the Associated Press, that was in PBS. But we got to take that information and we got to gain insight and we got to educate ourselves and we got to say, how can that make me better? Make news positive. Make it positive. Make it educational. Right here on TCLN, that's what I choose to do. And I choose to teach leadership with news. I choose to say whatever subject I'm going to talk about, what are the leadership lessons that we can learn and grow from as individuals for ourselves, but also just when someone out there that may be a leader and they may say, I like that. I see what you're saying. Because leaders forget along the way. They get stuck in the rut too. And they have to get back to that passion, back to that creativity. So I just wanted to end this episode with that. I hope this has blessed you in some kind of way. And join me next week. And as Dan Rather would say, guys, courage, my friend. Courage.
Thank you for tuning in to TCLN Network, Austin Public. TCLN Network is independently produced by IBK Media Productions. To support TCLN Network financially, visit paypal.me/TCLN Network. Also, TCLN Channel Podcasts. To learn more about TCLN Network, visit thecreativeleadershipnetwork.com and follow on all socials, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at IBK Media Works.